It's the hope of any business, achieving sustainable growth and confidence. But in these tough economic times, it's become increasingly difficult to keep moving in the right direction. And for many entrepreneurs, there's a real risk of their business collapsing, the threat of insolvency lingering in the background.
The disappointment of having to close a company after so many years when it's not even your fault is huge. Actually, it's the worst thing that can happen.
States everywhere face the same dilemma. How should insolvency cases be treated? And what's the fairest way of protecting the interests of everyone involved? Some say business startups and shutdowns are part of the course in this age of free market policies. And even the largest and most robust of economies are not immune. In Germany, for example, some 30,000 businesses have been going bust every year since the global financial crisis began in 2007. In Berlin, we met a woman whose construction firm became insolvent last October, leaving unfinished jobs like this sports facility. But the failure wasn't due to a lack of business. All of the clients were in fact public bodies, some of whom failed to pay on time for commission projects. And a couple of subcontractors may also now face difficulties.
Some people may not be able to imagine what it means to be insolvent. For us as a company, this has been an incredible blow. The business existed for 9 years. And when you look at the work we did, you can see we did our job and we did it well. Actually, even now, I find it hard to understand that we had to file for insolvency as a company after 9 years because of payment difficulties.
Officials say 1 in 4 European insolvencies are linked to late payments. Sabine says the anger over losing her business will remain for a long time, but she also feels for her staff.
For the workers employed at my company, to be exact, we're talking about 10 people, it was a major and painful change in their lives and for their families as well. They lost their jobs practically overnight. For me also, it was very hard. We have 3 kids.
Every country has its own laws on insolvency, and many are being re-evaluated. European rules adopted in 2000 are also under review. These apply when a failed business has assets or creditors in more than one member state. The regulation, which also applies to personal insolvencies, was designed to improve coordination. But there seems to be a shift in thinking about the priorities when companies start to go under. Some say current rules lean too much towards liquidation, when other options must be considered. And these differences have started to be noticed.
Some countries have a stronger emphasis on saving and restructuring companies in order to enable them to get back into business. This can be seen, for example, in England in recent years, and Germany applies this strategy with determination. France, too, has introduced insolvency reforms intended to encourage this. In other countries, this is not so developed yet. And even if laws are being changed, like in Spain, for example, it takes a long time before they're implemented.
Experts say this reassessment has become even more urgent as the likes of austerity measures impact on business. Those who deal with insolvency say the human impact is often forgotten, and the statistics may be surprising. Every year in the European Union, some 220,000 businesses go bust, and an estimated 1.5 million job losses are insolvency related. Any change in the European rules would be closely followed in a country like Luxembourg. just one example of where many businesses operate across borders. This may be a rich nation, but in 2010, for example, some 500 companies with staff went bust. And some union leaders here say that if there's globalization on the business level in Europe, there should also be more harmonization when it comes to rules protecting laid-off workers.
We must help these people a lot more, with more follow-up and assistance. Businesses can't leave them alone thinking their conscience is clear because those who lose their jobs get compensation. It's not enough. We do often forget the human aspect in all of this. We must have systems in place to foresee difficulties, so we can take action before insolvency happens.
That message has already been heard in some states, with so-called early warning policies put in place to try to keep struggling companies afloat. There are also now moves to encourage failed business people to be given more of a chance to start again. But the approach is still very different from country to country, with Europe's current focus on insolvency coordination, not harmonization of national laws. But could a more common approach be possible in the future?
The harmonization of procedures to save companies in difficulty is very, very complex. There's a big impact in many areas of the law, and so I believe this harmonization is really something for 20 years down the line, and in the short term it does not seem very realistic. The only possibility of more harmonization is in certain specific areas, and maybe the protection of workers could be one of those. But, on the other hand, the way the procedures function and the treatment of creditors do not seem to be things to harmonize, even in the medium term.
For now, though, there's no doubt that attitudes towards business failure are changing, and politicians are keen to make sure that laws reflect that. But it's a delicate balancing act. Encourage risk-taking and entrepreneurship, and at the same time protect workers, creditors and customers. And experts say struggling companies should waste no time in seeking help if there's to be any chance of one day returning to growth.